Hello, everyone. Okay, I just wanted to quickly re-record this video about the horses because the last time I did it was on my old rubbish microphone and the sound quality is terrible. So I thought I'd just quickly kind of do exactly the same thing I did last time. So if you've already seen that one, you won't get much new from this one. But this is just in case anyone hadn't seen that and couldn't tolerate the awful sound last time. So let me just get straight into it. This was for a personal project based on a book called The Chrysalids by John Whyndamm. I loved this story since I was a kid. It was read to me by my parents when I was little, and I've read it many times since. And it's a really cool story set after a nuclear war, like thousands of years after a nuclear war in North America, where mutation has become completely prescribed by the local religion, which is a kind of descendant of Christianity. It's a similar setup to, if you've ever read a canticle for Leibowitz, it's a similar kind of setup to that, in which these kind of religiously puritanical communities survive by legislating against mutation wherever they see it and destroying it. Now, what happens in the story is that the protagonists, the heroes, are these young group of kids who discover that they can basically WhatsApp between each other in their brains. They become telepathic through some mutation, and they don't want to reveal this because they know that their parents will kill them. So they escape using these great horses, as they're called, these giant horses, which are a mutation which is tolerated because of their utility. So, as the wiki from the Chrysalids Wikipedia page says, the great horses are a symbol because they prove that government is not entirely against all deviations, deviations being mutations, that they are prejudiced when it comes to deviations. If it poses to be a threat against them, it is a sin. If it takes them by surprise, it's a sin. If it can pose a threat to them in the future, it too is a sin. But if it can help them or be proven to have a slight advantage for them, they allow it to live and breed as if it is the norm, such as the great horses. So it shows the kind of hypocrisy of religion, and how religion is really much less about morality and much more about utility. And I love a pretentious twaddle reason to do a picture. I think it's my favorite thing. So that's kind of the jumping off point. I got this model off the internet. If I just quickly go to this page, if you type in free 3D model and whatever you want, you can almost certainly find um, models. This is pretty good, I think. It's only for educational purposes and personal purposes, which is cool. I didn't sell any of this work, so I think I'm in the clear there. But it's a good model. You can see that it's got a really good texture map on it. Decent geometry. It's not that high res, but it's more than good enough for my purposes. No bones inside it, so if I wanted to pose it, I'd have to put some bones in. I did pose it a touch. But I think I just did it by pushing the verts around. It was enough. Any more than that, and it starts to look really wrong and broken. But I could just about get away with it, I think. I mean, you can see that leg looks a bit like it's made of jelly, but it's good enough for the perspective that I wanted it to be in. It's not a finished piece. It's just a kind of 1 or 2 day project, mini project. So yeah, I built this 3D model. I built some big ones and some little ones. I had quite a bit of fun with the equipment on the horse. There's nothing I like more than taking a kind of ridiculous idea and making it have the appearance of some kind of technical feasibility. So, you've got a rope ladder, you've got this yoke on the back. I was later informed that this isn't a very good design. So I take that responsibility for that. Apparently, there's better ways that this could be designed for real load-bearing pack animals. I did another version, which I'll show you in the slideshow, of a slightly better design, but I didn't think it looked quite as cool. I liked this one. It was a nice opportunity to put some wood in there. And I'm not sure why it's not showing up the textures. There's like a carved texture on it, which I did with a bump map. This should be it. No? No. No. Anyway, I put a bump map on, then you'll see it in the renders. Bump map is when black is low, white is high, and you can do lots of surface detail for objects without having to do any geometric modeling, just by painting this bump map in Photoshop. Really, really great way of adding detail to a model. I love doing that. Normal maps, bump maps. I built the basket. That again has a texture on it. Again, I'm not sure why none of the textures are showing up, but you'll see them in a sec, so don't worry too much. Built the basket as quickly as possible. Put a little face in there, if you can see that, and made the horses. I think this is an old model because I made the horses slightly different, as you'll see shortly. One sec. But anyway, yeah, you can see how simple it is. Just real placeholders. But because the horse model is so good, the textures are so good, I think it works all right. So yeah, here you go. He's kind of starting to play around with it, get a feel for the kind of comparative sizes. I noticed on large animals, the eye ratio to the size of the skull tends to be a lot smaller, so that the skull grows, the eye doesn't grow. If you look at a whale compared to a baby, babies have huge eyes and a small face, and that automatically tells you that it's a baby animal. Whales have tiny eyes and an enormous skull, and you can tell that's an adult. And that instinctive understanding of the difference between kind of juvenile and adult creatures also carries over onto a lot of our design work. For example, cars, cute little cars have big headlights against a small kind of overall size, and we think of them as cute, whereas a badass sports car often has angry small eyes, like a crocodile or something. So yeah, we use a lot of that kind of instinctive stuff in our design. Oh yeah, here you go. You can see some carving. Very bad, but I think if I was to come back to this, I would do that in more detail, because I wanted to depict a world that, although primitive and kind of medieval compared to our world, because the technology has slipped away and been repressed by religion, it's still fairly stable, and there's enough time for people to sit around making carvings, things like that. Bit of old chain, something that is industrial, to show that this isn't just the Middle Ages, this is actually the future, and they found this old bit of chain, or maybe repaired it in a blacksmith shop or something. I'm not sure if there's the technology to make something like that, but maybe they can kind of repair it and maintain it from old relics that they found. I like encoding stuff like that into the story. There's a few more. I quite like this angle. I might come back and do this one again. This was the original angle I saw in my mind, and I kind of like it. I like this sort of hierarchy of man to little horse to big horse to biggest horse. Kind of draws your eye in. A few different lighting angles. I like to spin the sun round and just see if I can find lighting angles that are best. I often don't know what I want to do. I know what I'm looking for, and I'll kind of play around with the model until I see what I'm looking for, and then pick it out. That's easier for me than sort of designing it with an intent. This is starting to look more like the finished article. So yeah, and smaller the eyes. I think I did one with smaller ears as well for the same reason in the Photoshop. It's easier to do that in the Photoshop, I find. You could fiddle around for ages with the geometry, or you could just do it in 2 seconds in Photoshop. I always try and split my time most efficiently between doing what 3D does, which is putting stuff in perspective and things like that, replicating lots of the same item over and over again in different angles. That's what 3D is brilliant for. 2D is brilliant for just doing analog detail work that in 3D would take quite a bit of time. I changed one of the horses to have his head down just to give it some variety. To have them both exactly the same would be kind of boring. I wanted them to look like real creatures, and they're kind of maybe this one's getting a bit bored and stamping his feet and chuffing his reins and stuff. So yeah. Oh, that's skipping ahead a touch. Oh, come back. So yeah, pretty much how it ended up. I've got after I finish talking, I'll do a little kind of slideshow of all the different progression through the PSD, and you can see how I made it. But yeah, you can see it was really very straightforward. Did a bit of painting on the top very clumsily. My painting isn't up to much. I was really proud of this little guy, this little Hulk Hogan guy. It's not often I paint a person from scratch that it looks real. Normally I use poser, but I thought he was okay, good enough anyway for a sketch. And a little person in there, looking a bit more cheery than I originally intended, but I thought that was kind of just nice. Doesn't have to be the story that I intended. It could just be that these guys are off to market and this is his granddaughter or something. Whatever anyone wants to imagine. Kept the background pretty simple, so it's not too distracting. Just some trees or whatever. I like having nice low detail around the outside and then having quite crisp detail where I want people to actually look. This is one of the ways of managing where people look. High contrast, people tend to look at that. High detail. I like having one thing in front of another. I like having this kind of color pop out behind, pick out these shapes. That's something I picked up from Craig Mullins. He often does that. He has this nice habit of like putting cool colors together and finding nice abstract compositions in the fairly realistic image. I think that's great. Put a chain on, so maybe this is the kind of motivator of these guys, and if these guys get a bit excited, then you've got something a bit stronger than a man holding them down. I think these pretty placid, aren't they, these dudes? They've been around, they're pretty chilled, but good to have this guy just to kind of keep him under control just in case. Giant hooves, blah, blah, blah. You can see the painting's very rough. I guess if you wanted to take this on, you could do a bit of a better job. But I quite like leaving stuff rough, you know, it doesn't matter too much. Flowers, some ducks, little ducky scene. I didn't think of those at first, but I thought, what would be a reason for them to have stopped in the path that would be a nice, you know, little narrative reason. So, you know, I thought maybe some duckies crossing the road or something, just to give you the sense of like small, bigger, huge. I like that. Yeah, Sid Mead ripped off signature and you're done. I hope that was interesting. Slideshow's coming up after this. Bye.
Stick a bunny in me pocket. I'll fetch the suitcase from the van. 'Cause if you want the lessons but you don't ask questions, then brother, I'm your man. 'Cause where it all comes from is a mystery. It's like the changing of the seasons and the tides of the sea. But here's the one which driving me berserk. Why do only fools and horses work? La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. We got some off-price crack ties, some miles and miles of carpet tiles, TVs, deep freeze and David Bowie LPs, pool games, gold chains, wuss names and Edda Push and Trevor Francis track suits from a mush and shepherd's bush. Push, 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 push. No income tax, no VAT, no money back and no guarantee. Black or white, rich or poor, we'll cut prices at a straw. Same man defeat Bookie Street.